Be the kind of trader who sees the big picture. The world is changing around you. Global threats push gold, the safe haven asset, to higher prices each and every day. Now's your chance to start trading gold. Just go to capex.com and register to get up to a $5,000 bonus on your first deposit. Simply use GOLD5000 as a promo code and you're good to go. Capex.com proudly welcomes you to the next level trading experience. Register now and start taking full advantage of the new gold rush. Terms and conditions apply. Exposure to gold obtained via contracts for difference, which are leveraged products and incur a high level of risk. Capex.com is operated by JME Financial Services, Pty Ltd, an authorized financial services provider.
Rise and shine. 6 a.m. and your hand can't make it to the alarm clock before the voices in your head start telling you that it's too early, too dark, and too cold to get out of bed. Aching muscles lie still in rebellion, pretending not to hear your brain commanding them to move. A legion of voices are shouting their unanimous permission for you to hit the snooze button and go back to dreamland. But you didn't ask their opinion. The voice you've chosen to listen to is one of defiance. A voice that says there was a reason you set that alarm in the first place. So sit up, put your feet on the floor, and don't look back, because we've got work to do. Welcome to the grind. For what is each day but a series of conflicts between the right way and the easy way? 10,000 streams fan out like a river delta before you, each one promising the path of least resistance. Thing is, you're headed upstream. And when you make that choice, when you decide to turn your back on what's comfortable and safe and what some would call common sense, well, that's day one. From there, it only gets tougher. So just make sure this is something you want, because the easy way out will always be there, ready to wash you away. All you have to do is pick up your feet. But you aren't going to, are you? With each step comes the decision to take another. You're on your way now, but this is no time to dwell on how far you've come. You're in a fight against an opponent you can't see, but oh, you can feel him on your heels, can't you? Feel him breathing down your neck. You know what that is? That's you. Your fears, your doubts, and insecurities all lined up like a firing squad, ready to shoot you out of the sky. But don't lose heart. While they're not easily defeated, they are far from invincible. Remember, this is the grind, the battle royale between you and your mind, your body, and the devil on your shoulder who's telling you that this is just a game. This is just a waste of time. Your opponents are stronger than you. Drown out the voice of uncertainty with the sound of your own heartbeat. Burn away your self-doubt with a fire lit beneath you. Remember what we're fighting for, and never forget that momentum is a cruel mistress. She can turn on a dime or the smallest mistake. She is ever searching for the weak place in your armor, that one tiny thing you forgot to prepare for. So as long as the devil is hiding the details, the question remains, is that all you got? Are you sure? And when the answer is yes, when you've done all you can to prepare yourself for battle, then it's time to go forth and boldly face your enemy, the enemy within. Only now you must take that fight into the open, into hostile territory. You're a lion in a field of lions, all hunting the same elusive prey with a desperate starvation that says victory is the only thing that can keep you alive. So believe that voice that says you can run a little faster, and you can throw a little harder, and that for you, the laws of physics are merely a suggestion. Luck is the last dying wish of those who want to believe that winning can happen by accident. Sweat, on the other hand, is for those who know it's a choice. So decide now, because destiny waits for no man. And when your time comes and 1,000 different voices are trying to tell you you're not ready for it, listen instead to that lone voice of dissent. The one that says you are ready, you are prepared. It's all up to you now. So rise and shine.
I'm going to get destroyed. But if I can still be standing on my feet, then life isn't so bad.
Somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. You know what you are. What you're made of. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Look, I'm exhausted. Had it all figured out and I lost it. They say that's the cost, but it just feels like a lot. Stop, are you going or not? I miss certainty. Miss the 9 to 5s, knowing exactly where I need to be and why I'm not built for this. Progress moves in slow motion. They're out making money and getting promotions, saying all the right things, pulling all the right levers, while I sit here, write my future self love letters. Who's winning? Is this the end or beginning? 'Cause I'm starting to feel like reality's slipping, and bank accounts, they aren't very forgiving, and life on edge feels like falling, not living. If effort brings victory, what am I missing? Nothing good comes easy. When we have to, we push through, not knowing completely. You're here because you're made for this next level, taking these places that most people won't. Start embracing it. Who cares what they do? They're not you. You'll go through more now than you think you're supposed to, but that shows you can cope with the highs and the lows, because you rose to be more. Could've run away, could've avoided the thorns, could've been comfortable. Blood, sweat, and tears, they're expendable. No more pretending, man, build something memorable. Don't drink from their cup or by stories they tell, because when all their time's up, you'll have dug your own well. You didn't use lifelines, you're topped off for a lifetime, so drop all those one-liners. We'll get them next time. No, this time is your time, and whatever you decide will end up being real life. No stop signs, just storylines. This whole thing is a misunderstanding, a miscalculation. Jumped and missed the landing. I'm mystified, I can waste so much time. These ovations are strictly imagination, not standing. So much for planning, guess fate left without me. Those failure statistics, yeah, they'll be about me. Was overly optimistic, forgot the logistics. Guess we all learn sometime, don't we? Good is not good enough. No, how long do I stay down before I let go? I buried my pride and took it inside, but never enough. It takes a toll, it gets old getting told you've got miles of road left to go. You're alone with this future unknown. Just go home. Just go home, it's safe there. Yeah, I'll find some embrace there. Look, it's time to admit defeat. A humble retreat, check the box and complete to my core. Intrinsically, it's not for me, I can't do this. I knew this is how it would be. No fame, no fortune, no names on marquees, just running in place every day on repeat. This is the world I wanna see, where everything's taken with no guarantees. No, come on man, pick your head up. Go back inside, half a life's learning to get up. How can I make you see that you have everything you need, and what you want to be is never out of reach? Fate deceives sometimes, but destiny's calling, so can't let the phone ring. You know there's no all-knowing. Go level up, no letdowns. Let the world in, push fear out. It's self-belief, it starts right now. When hell freezes, you lay down. But until then, it's your town, it's your story, it's your crown. Live in the clouds, feet on the ground. They stand still, you run around. Go mesmerize, or they socialize. There's dollar signs to be maximized. If you live it right, regret nothing. Loud applause, the sweetest sound. And this moment won't happen again, and never becomes forever unless you choose to begin. So see greatness in each step, and power in progress. Your future, yeah, that's limitless, it's infinite. Don't forget you want this.
Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Ted Turner. Success leaves clues, kids. I just named 5 of the greatest names in business in the last 150 years. And they all have one thing in common. They're ball busters. They're hard as nails. Where does that leave you? I still work 50, 60 hours a week. And I haven't had to work in 35 years. You're not willing to do anything. You're not willing to sacrifice anything to be a high-performance person.
I don't want to be like that.
No, most people don't.
I want to be liked.
Yeah, well, see, you want to fit in. I'm the only speaker that you're ever going to hear that really, with all his heart, doesn't give a shit. If I leave here you liking me, I did something wrong.
Do you remember them days where you thought it was absolutely unbearable and you thought you wasn't going to endure that one? Do you know that your survival rate for every last one of them bad days is 100%? Your track record for surviving bad days is 100%. That's a fact. Your track record, you batting 1,000. You'd have survived every funky day you ever had. You survived every hater. You survived all the evictions. You survived the firings. You survived all the tell you no, we ain't hiring. You survived all the trouble you ever been in. Your survival rate is 100%. 100%.
Getting your business funded is a lengthy process with the banks, and it can take weeks before getting an answer. ProfitFX works with the best in the finance industry to bring you an unrivaled business funding solution for South African businesses. Our funding partners have funded millions in the last year in support of growing your business and our economy. Get in touch with your talk show host to request more information. A trade history of 3 years or more and an annual turnover of 1 million rand or more is required. Terms and conditions apply.
Be the kind of trader who sees the big picture. The world is changing around you. Global threats push gold, the safe haven asset, to higher prices each and every day. Now's your chance to start trading gold. Just go to capex.com and register to get up to a $5,000 bonus on your first deposit. Simply use GOLD5000 as a promo code and you're good to go. Capex.com proudly welcomes you to the next level trading experience. Register now and start taking full advantage of the new gold rush. Terms and conditions apply. Exposure to gold obtained via contracts for difference, which are leveraged products and incur a high level of risk. Capex.com is operated by JME Financial Services, Pty Ltd, an authorized financial services provider.
The champ is here! 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 Good morning and welcome to Bull Market Stock Show. This is your host Rian Opson, and we're doing this week an all-out war on currencies and the different central banks that will come out this week. I must say it will be actually a very difficult week to trade, not just on the FX market, but also on your commodities and also your equities will be very difficult to trade with. So central bankers, is basically the currency war already started. Where actually central bankers were actually dumping their currencies by printing more money, I can say. It's like the Federal Reserve that did currency swaps and look, New Zealand also is talking about negative interest rates and also do credit swaps with Australia. Now that is an interesting story. Excuse me, but it looks like the Reserve Bank of New Zealand will actually go into negative territory with the interest rates as the business confidence did dip last week back into contraction territory. Then you have the BOJ, which we all know they just been printing money since the 1990s. Then you have the big news of the Bank of England that will come out also this week. But the story with the Bank of England, they first needs to assess, or me and you needs to assess the news that will come out this week about the unemployment and also the wage growth and what is going on there. So that will be actually a very interesting part of the Bank of England. Now, it may actually change the projection or forecasts on the Bank of England if this news come out terribly. So we have to be very careful this week when it comes to trading, because please, you must remember that whatever is done by the central banks reflects the equity market as well. So, and also the commodity market as well. So you have to be very careful. I know now the US dollar or the Federal Reserve has more impact on the on the commodity side, because obviously all the commodities are trading with US dollars. But the Bank of England do have an effect on the equity markets across the world, not so heavily on maybe on United States and others, but have a very heavy effect on the FTSE and also on the European stocks. So you have to be very careful for those guys who trade with your equity markets. And then we have the Federal Reserve that will come out with a conference this week, and that might throw things a bit upside down this week, because obviously they need to come out and say how they're going to get to that elusive average 2% inflation. But just for interest sake, if you look at the dollar this morning, it looks like the market is preparing itself for aggressive stimulus packages that will come through from the Federal Reserve this week. And there's certain things that I picked up from the current situation, or I would say the current recession, and then also the 2008 recession. There was actually differences in the two, and I think that will give the Federal Reserve a very good reason to go with the new approach of this elusive 2% inflation story. They want to set the economy on fire, and I think some of these policies that they generated this year is actually working to boost inflation and also to create jobs, because of the current job situation in the United States, which shows that it's actually a very big improvement in the United States, creating about over 1 million jobs every single month now since May. So something the Federal Reserve and Donald Trump is doing right to boost the economy. And the thing is, I don't know, will the central bank hold on with these stimulus packages, or will they stop? But I must say the U.S. economy is actually growing significantly fast over the last few months, and we can say that we can actually give credit to the Federal Reserve and to Donald Trump for actually having a very good constructive recovery policy. But time will tell. But for now, what we know, this story is actually working like a machine, and it's really ripping off some good fruits in it. But tomorrow's news on Tuesday, so I will go step by step this week of the different news. We have the RBA minutes that will come out at 3:30 on Tuesday. That is now tomorrow, on the 15th of September. So there, the central bank will give off news of Australia, will give hints on what they will do to get the economy back on track. Now, we all know that the Reserve Bank of Australia dropped the interest rates significantly, and on top of that, they also introduced a QE policy, which is the first time for a lot of countries. It is the first time, even for South Africa, where they try and resuscitate the economy. Now, that will be on 3:30, so they will give hints on what they will do to devalue their currency. That's why I put this out as an all-out war on currency this week, because the Reserve Bank of Australia did stress that a strong Australian dollar is a problem for exports, and they obviously export stuff to China. So a high Australian dollar makes things a bit difficult for Australia. A high Australian dollar makes things difficult for Australia to export their commodities to the Chinese. So they need to get that currency a bit down, and obviously they will throw in hints at the RBA minutes meeting tomorrow at 3:30. So that will definitely be interesting at around 3:30. Now, then we have at 4 o'clock that you might get other news that will offset or can offset the news of 3:30. So that's why I'm saying this will be a very, very difficult week for traders, because then you have the industrial production of China that will come out. Now, the industrial production is very important for commodity-driven economies, for example, like South Africa and also Australia and New Zealand, now also Canada included. Now, the thing is, if the industrial production beats forecast, then definitely you will see a higher price on the commodities. Now, that will be at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now, the forecast there is at 4.5%. Consensus is at 5.1%. And the previous was at 4.4%. Obviously, tomorrow, we know what will be the outcome of China's industrial production. And I think that might offset the 330 news of actually Australia, because if Australia is throwing hints of devaluing its currency, which I think they will, maybe push more QE or hinting about negative interest rates, I'm not sure, but they will definitely talk in a language that will push the currency down. Now, if the industrial production come out strong tomorrow, that may offset the policy or the idea of the RBA, the Reserve Bank of Australia, because then it means the Australian dollar will go higher because of the industrial production news of China. Now, the relations between China and Australia is that more than 80% of Australia's commodities go to China. So they have a very good trade relations, although nowadays there is a bit of tension, but the trade relationship is still there. So a lot of raw material is going to China. So a higher industrial production, which I do expect, a higher industrial production will definitely offset any dovish statement from the RBA tomorrow. So please, be very careful tomorrow. I will break that news for you tomorrow at 10 because I know that news normally lasts a whole entire day, whatever the news will be. So please be very careful on that news on 3:30 this morning and also at 4 o'clock, the Chinese industrial production. Then we have the retail sales out of China and then the unemployment rate out of China. Now that news is not so much important, also the fixed assets investment. That is not so much important. The main indicator or news event for tomorrow will be the two of the RBA and the industrial production out of China. Now, the industrial production out of China has quite a lot of impact on the news on Australia, on the Australian dollar. Now, the other news event will be the British news. Now, the rot will come out here, for Britain. Britain's employment news or employment change will be out at 8 o'clock this morning. And then you have the average earnings will also be out at 8 o'clock, and the unemployment rate also will follow at 8. So all that news will come out at 8 o'clock, and it's projected the unemployment rate of the UK will be up by 4.1%. They do project also that 120,000 jobs were lost in this figure of June. So it will be actually a bit tricky to trade with the British pound, because this can give us a hint on what will the Bank of England do. Will they drop interest rates further or push more stimulus into the economy, which can devalue the British pound? So the news of tomorrow will be of a hint of what will happen with the Bank of England's monetary policy statement. Will they come out with a dovish tone, which I think they will? I doubt they will come with a hawkish tone, because the GDP of the UK was a bit bad or worse than what was forecast. And also I think the employment figures will also show the same. And also the average earnings, I doubt it will also tick up. I think it will be a bit bad, because the average earnings for July looks at negative 8% that is projected, and negative 1.1%. So that is the two indicators there on average earnings. And then unemployment rate, as I said, will be at 4.1%. That is what the UK expects. So please, that news will also be of importance for Britain, and it can actually disrupt also the commodity currencies and also safe havens, because if this news is terrible for this whole entire day, for example, The industrial production is bad. The RBA wants more stimulus for the economy, and on top of that, England push out bad news. Then you might see actually the dollar or the safe havens move higher up, and then you will see British pound and also the commodity currencies go down. So please, but it can also swing around. You will have maybe industrial production that will be positive. RBA is negative. The job market in the UK is negative. So what the hell do you do? Will you continue trading or will you sit out? That is what make trading, that is what will make trading actually extremely difficult this week. I will just take a short break and then I will come back with Monday's news. Then I will come back with Wednesday's news, which will also be a bit of a hectic day because you have the inflation news out of Britain, you have the retail sales out of South Africa, you have the retail sales out of the United States. We all know that is massive news for the United States. And then you have the big one at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, which will be the FOMC statement with a conference. So that can literally throw your trading totally out for that Wednesday. I will just take a short break and then I'll be back with you with some more information regarding the markets.
The champ is here! 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 The champ is here!
Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Ted Turner. Success leaves clues, kids. I just named 5 of the greatest names in business in the last 150 years. And they all have one thing in common. They're ball busters. They're hard as nails. Where does that leave you? I still work 50, 60 hours a week. And I haven't had to work in 35 years. You're not willing to do anything. You're not willing to sacrifice anything to be a high-performance person.
I don't want to be like Dad.
No, most people don't.
I want to be liked.
Yeah, well, see, you want to fit in. I'm the only speaker that you're ever going to hear that really, with all his heart, doesn't give a shit. If I leave here you liking me, I did something wrong.
Do you remember them days where you thought it was absolutely unbearable and you thought you wasn't going to endure that one? Do you know that your survival rate for every last one of them bad days is 100%? Your track record for surviving bad days is 100%. That's a fact. Your track record, you batting 1,000. You'd have survived every funky day you ever had. You survived every hater. You survived all the evictions. You survived the firings. You survived all the tell you no, we ain't hiring. You survived all the trouble you ever been in. Your survival rate is 100%. 100%.
Getting your business funded is a lengthy process with the banks, and it can take weeks before getting an answer. ProfitFX works with the best in the finance industry to bring you an unrivaled business funding solution for South African businesses. Our funding partners have funded millions in the last year in support of growing your business and our economy. Get in touch with your talk show host to request more information. A trade history of 3 years or more and an annual turnover of 1 million rand or more is required. Terms and conditions apply.
The champ is here! 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 The champ is here!
Good morning and welcome to Bull Market Stock Show. This is your host Rian Omsen, and we're doing actually the week's news, which will be a very difficult week ahead because we have central bankers that are talking. You will have more of very important news that will come out, especially when you look at Britain, that might disrupt their monetary policy stance and maybe look at more aggressive QE, or they can keep it as it is. But that the data is important because most central banks, or all central banks, even South Africa, is all data dependent, and they need to make their decision based on facts and not on how they actually feel. Now, very importantly, it's Wednesday. Now, Wednesday is a big one because of the FOMC, but I will come to that. The big one is also, excuse me, you have the British inflation. Now, this news come out before the Bank of England's decision. Now, at 8 o'clock tomorrow, you will have the inflation news out of Britain, which is year-on-year inflation is forecast at 0.2%, and the previous was 1%. Also, the consensus have it at 0.1%. So that might actually push the British pound into a sell-off before this news, and also it will actually go down. The British pound now will go down maybe for that whole entire day if that news come out far worse of what is being forecast. Now, if you look at the GDP of Britain, it actually broke the forecast number. So we might see a surprise also in the forecast number for inflation. So you have to be very, very careful there because of the GDP figures of Britain that broke actually the forecast, and also the inflation number that could also broke the forecast into negative territory. So please be careful there. But inflation rate for month over month for Britain is negative 0.4%. That is what they forecast, negative 0.6%, and the previous was at 0.4%. So that will be very, very interesting there. Then you have core inflation year on year that shows a 0.8% forecast, 0.6% consensus, and previous at 1.8%. Now, if this news, year-on-year inflation, CPI goes into negative territory, and core inflation maybe at around 0.8% or worse, then you will get a sell-off, because then the market will start to think that the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England will start to look and sink the interest rates maybe into negative territory or push more QE. But the more QE term, if inflation go further down, it will give an indication that it doesn't work, and the British will actually maybe will actually be more aggressive. Now, also at the same time, these figures are for August, and we all know now that the US dollar did not do well in the month of August, and the British pound was actually going up strongly. So that could actually push the forecast number into negative territory for the year-on-year inflation, and also for month-on-month inflation, and a bit lower, but softer on core inflation in the UK. So it will be very interesting at 8 o'clock tomorrow to see what will be the inflation indicators for Britain. Then we have the retail sales out of South Africa. That will be at 1 o'clock. The retail sales forecast is negative 3.8%. We have a consensus at 5%. And then we have a 7.5% that was the previous. This was now for July. Now, during July, also the lockdown regulations started to go a bit off at that time, but that was now late in the month of July. So we might see actually a negative 3.8%. That is actually a very realistic forecast there. Maybe it could turn around things there, but I doubt it will be worse. But we can expect anything from the retail sales numbers of South Africa. And then we have at 2:30, we have the inflation of Canada. That will also be a very interesting one, because obviously when the US dollar is trading a bit softer, then you might see actually inflation numbers for different other countries more negative. Because their currencies is stronger, so which means whatever they import will be cheaper, and that may reflect on the prices. So a stronger currency normally leads to a dip in the deflation. It doesn't result into negative inflation, but it could lead to a softer inflation. So Canada's August inflation number, which will come out at 2.30, might be actually a bit softer, which will also put the Canadians under enormous stress to put also some QE in or also go into negative territory. So 0.3 is forecast there for CPI, and for core inflation it's at 0.6%. That is the news that will come out for Canada. So please be also careful on the Canadian news. Then we have the retail sales month over month for the United States that will be out. Now that is the big news also. So retail sales for the United States is forecast at 1% and 1.2%. That was previous, and the consensus have it at 1%. Now that is month over month. And then you have also the motor sales that will come out, but that is not so much of important. The main indicator there is actually the retail sales number. Now, August is what we all expect will be a bit softer as time goes on. It will be a bit softer because of the less stimulus that is floating around in the United States, because you must remember Donald Trump actually pushed out a fiscal spending and give people money for staying at home to contain the coronavirus, and that story is over, and they're still fighting over additional stimulus for the U.S. economy. So that's why the retail sales might be a bit softer as what the market expects. So that news will be out on Wednesday at 2:30. Then we move over the big one, which will be the FOMC. Now, the FOMC is a bit a tricky one. Because the Federal, I will not say a tricky one, the Federal Reserve did make it clear that they will run the inflation hot, or they will run the economy hot. The problem is how. How will they do that? How will they hold the employment numbers up, and how will they run inflation hot? That is the main issue on the Federal Reserve. Now, there is also a fight among the Democrats and the Republicans regarding additional stimulus. But one thing that you need to understand here, as I said earlier, I picked up in the recession of 2008. Now, obviously, we can't compare the two because there was no virus there. That was a clinical economic collapse that happened there. And then today we have more of a COVID story. Now, what I did pick up in the data, but still there was job losses, so it's basically the same. The story there is that when unemployment went down, obviously inflation went down and spending went down. The same applies to the United States. We have job numbers down, we have spending up and inflation up. So which means the stimulus from the government helped holding the spending part of the United States together, and also the inflation. So that's why we didn't see much of the deterioration in inflation. If the government did nothing, I'm not talking about the central bank now, I'm talking about the government specifically. If the government did nothing on these stimulus packages, then we would have seen a far worse inflation number as 2008 recession. But because the government intervened, that is what actually hold the whole story of the United States together, especially the inflation and the retail sales number. Now, last week, the inflation number came out. The inflation year on year was forecast at 1.1%, and the actual come out at 1.3%, which actually were beating the forecast. Also, month over month was 0.2%, and also you have an actual of 0.4%. That was now on CPI inflation. Core inflation was forecast at 1.5%. It actual come out at 1.7%. Month over month forecast was 0.2%, and the actual came out at 0.4%. So it was very good inflation numbers that came out. Very, very good. Also, the PCE, the personal consumption expenditure, was also for July was actually very good. It was at 1.8%, and obviously for August you can maybe say it will be also around there if I look at the CPI numbers. So which means the inflation is not dead. The inflation is there, although it's not there at 2%, but the inflation, there is still inflation. We don't have a deflation. That is what actually we expected, a deflation number. So because of that inflation numbers that were up, you would see the dollar was retreating, and then we saw the gold price went up. Now that was all thanks to the government, the Donald Trump regime, to push stimulus directly to the people, and that's why we have the inflation numbers still high up. So the US consumer was the big driver there, but we must remember there's still a fight, because the US, or I would say the Republicans that are there now, don't want additional or aggressive stimulus for the US economy, because obviously you have other implications if you continue using print money and give it to the people, because then you go on to the norms of a socialist state, because you just give people money, stay at home. Now I understand why they need money for staying at home was also the lockdown regulation. But obviously, the United States like balance there, infection high and all those things. But the death rate is really not so bad, and it looks like US is getting accustomed to those COVID. Now the problem is now. I think the Federal Reserve want more stimulus for the government to keep the momentum going, because you must remember the US consumer are basically the ones keeping the US economy together. That's why we had record number of employment. That's why we had big sales, or I would say retail sales, and also inflation well balanced. And that was all because of the fiscal side of the government, where they spend actually aggressive money onto the economy. But the repercussions for that is because it was debt that needs to get repaid. So the Republicans don't want to engage in this anymore, and they want actually the economy to run on its own, because the regulation or lockdown regulation is getting a bit softer. But we're also sitting in a situation where we'll get winter now. But the thing is, will the Republicans increase or do another round of stimulus to hold the economy together and to set the whole economy on fire by creating this massive amount of jobs? Because that was the main indicator. The stronghold of the reversal of the US economy was the stimulus package from the national government of the United States. But that story needs to come to an end, because you have other repercussions. So that is where the big question mark come in. Will the Federal Reserve, because I think that's why the Federal Reserve was so adamant to say they will reach the 2% inflation, because they just think the federal government will push this money into the economy to set the economy on fire, people spend their jobs. That is what they think. But at the end, you create another problem of more of a socialist state, where people will just stay at home and want to receive money, because why the hell must you work? The government is just putting checks in the account. So you have other repercussions. So that is what the whole Republicans are debating on, because the Democrats want a 3 trillion additional stimulus, which the Republicans were saying absolutely hell no. And that is where that meeting is still deadlocked. Nobody made a decision regarding that. Or maybe the Federal Reserve is waiting for more data. But what I can notice is that the reason why the US economy is still together, or the consumer still driving the economy, was all because of that massive stimulus package from the Trump administration. So that was the main driver. And I'm not sure, will the Republicans will they allow that to happen, or will the Federal Reserve force them to do so? I honestly don't know, because they can't, because they are a free market economy. But somehow there's still high unemployment, and they still need the consumer to spend. So it's a difficult one for Donald Trump and also for the Federal Reserve and the federal government. We'll just take a short break and then I'll be back with you some more information regarding the markets this week.
The champ is here! 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 The champ is here!
Be the kind of trader who sees the big picture. The world is changing around you. Global threats push gold, the safe haven asset, to higher prices each and every day. Now's your chance to start trading gold. Just go to capex.com and register to get up to a $5,000 bonus on your first deposit. Simply use GOLD5000 as a promo code and you're good to go. Capex.com proudly welcomes you to the next level trading experience. Register now and start taking full advantage of the new gold rush. Terms and conditions apply. Exposure to gold obtained via contracts for difference, which are leveraged products and incur a high level of risk. Capex.com is operated by JME Financial Services, Pty Ltd, an authorized financial services provider.
Rise and shine. 6 a.m. and your hand can't make it to the alarm clock before the voices in your head start telling you that it's too early, too dark, and too cold to get out of bed. Aching muscles lie still in rebellion, pretending not to hear your brain commanding them to move. A legion of voices are shouting their unanimous permission for you to hit the snooze button and go back to dreamland. But you didn't ask their opinion. The voice you've chosen to listen to is one of defiance. A voice that says there was a reason you set that alarm in the first place. So sit up, put your feet on the floor, and don't look back, because we've got work to do. Welcome to the grind. For what is each day but a series of conflicts between the right way and the easy way? 10,000 streams fan out like a river delta before you, each one promising the path of least resistance. Thing is, you're headed upstream. And when you make that choice, when you decide to turn your back on what's comfortable and safe and what some would call common sense, well, that's day one. From there, it only gets tougher. So just make sure this is something you want, because the easy way out will always be there, ready to wash you away. All you have to do is pick up your feet. But you aren't going to, are you? With each step comes the decision to take another. You're on your way now, but this is no time to dwell on how far you've come. You're in a fight against an opponent you can't see, but oh, you can feel him on your heels, can't you? Feel him breathing down your neck. You know what that is? That's you. Your fears, your doubts, and insecurities all lined up like a firing squad, ready to shoot you out of the sky. But don't lose heart. While they're not easily defeated, they are far from invincible. Remember, this is the grind, the battle royale between you and your mind, your body, and the devil on your shoulder who's telling you that this is just a game. This is just a waste of time. Your opponents are stronger than you. Drown out the voice of uncertainty with the sound of your own heartbeat. Burn away your self-doubt with a fire lit beneath you. Remember what we're fighting for, and never forget that momentum is a cruel mistress. She can turn on a dime with the smallest mistake. She is ever searching for the weak place in your armor, that one tiny thing you forgot to prepare for. So as long as the devil is hiding the details, the question remains, is that all you got? Are you sure? And when the answer is yes, when you've done all you can to prepare yourself for battle, then it's time to go forth and boldly face your enemy, the enemy within. Only now you must take that fight into the open, into hostile territory. You're a lion in a field of lions, all hunting the same elusive prey with a desperate starvation that says victory is the only thing that can keep you alive. So believe that voice that says you can run a little faster, and you can throw a little harder, and that for you, the laws of physics are merely a suggestion. Luck is the last dying wish of those who want to believe that winning can happen by accident. Sweat, on the other hand, is for those who know it's a choice. So decide now, because destiny waits for no man. And when your time comes and 1,000 different voices are trying to tell you you're not ready for it, listen instead to that lone voice of dissent. The one that says you are ready, you are prepared. It's all up to you now. So rise and shine.
The champ is here!
morning and welcome back to Bull Market Stock Show. This is your host Rian Hobson, and we're still doing the this week of news. And as I said, this will be a currency war week, and also it will affect your precious Nasdaq and also other equities across the world because of the Federal Reserve and also other central bankers that will actually try and devalue their currency. Now, the Bank of England will also do the same on Thursday, but before I get there, that Wednesday we will get the FOMC with a conference, and then on Thursday we will have the Bank of England. But before I will get there, we will have the GDP numbers of New Zealand. That will be at 1:45 a.m. In New Zealand. So that news will come out. The South African time will be at 12:45 South African time. New Zealand GDP growth will be announced. The forecast there is at negative 13.1%, and previous was at 1.6%, and this is quarter over quarter. So it will indicate whether New Zealand economy contracted aggressively or mildly, and will they need this negative interest rate. So that will be interesting. So obviously, if you see a bad GDP number out of New Zealand, which will break the forecast, you can expect the Reserve Bank of New Zealand that will come out guns blazing to drop interest rates actually extremely deep into the negative territory. So we can expect that. So please be very, very careful on that one. Actually, for the whole week, it will be a bit scary. And then we have the GDP growth rate year on year also for New Zealand. It shows a negative 13.5%, and the previous was at negative 0.2%. So negative 13.5%, and the previous was at negative 0.2%. Also, they have consensus out at negative 13.3%. Then we have more news at 3:30 Australia's news that will come out. Now, this is 3:30 a.m. South African time. So the New Zealand employment indicators will come out. It shows a forecast at 7.7% unemployment. Consensus also have it at 7.7%, and then the previous was at 7.5%. The employment change number will be at negative 40,000. That is forecast, and then the consensus have it at negative 50,000, and the previous was at 114,000. That is now for the employment indicators for Australia. They do project full-time employment will be at negative 10,000, so which means part-time will be at negative 30,000. So please be careful for that one. That is at 3 a.m. South African time. So I would advise you with that news coming out, because the problem is there. You will have an overflow of news from the FOMC. So you will have an overflow of news from the FOMC that will push over to the Thursday that might disrupt this news out of New Zealand and Australia. On top of that, you will have later on, you will have the Bank of England's news that will also come out. So that makes it a bit difficult to trade with. Just to remind you again, you will have Thursday evening's news. That is now South African time at 8 o'clock. You will have the FOMC statement that will come out. And then you have the Thursday early morning South African time. Then you have the Australia and New Zealand news will come out. So that might clash, that news, and it might throw you off of your whole trading projection. So it can make things a bit difficult for you to trade this week if you want to trade directly on the news. Then we have the Bank of England's rate decisions, which I say it could also be thrown out if we see bad employment numbers now coming out, and also wages that will also be out of Britain. So that could derail the whole entire Bank of England's monetary policy, where they could go into more aggressive stimulus. But as things stand, it looks like they will do absolutely nothing. But if things are bad, which is based on the inflation and employment, we could see that the Bank of England will maybe try and force the market in a dovish tone, because also the rate decision there is at 0.1%. That is the rate decision, and also the quantitative easing is at 745 billion pounds that the British is actually printing money. The MPC vote for a rate change. It's literally they're all in favor of not moving any interest rates. So it looks like nothing will happen on Thursday for England. But we have to look at the data, because all central banks are data dependent before they will engage any decision. So if the news is terrible for Britain, we can expect the market to go into a sell-off for the British pound, and that could lead to a more dovish tone or an unexpected rate cut for the British economy. Then we have the South African interest rate decision. Now, this one will also be a bit tricky because the GDP figures came out terrible. It was negative 51%, and they projected the negative 40% quarter over quarter. And then they projected actually a year on year of about 6%, but now it looks like a negative GDP growth for year on year at the 7%, but it looked like it can go far more worse, because also we're sitting with electricity problem, with load shedding that is going on here, and then on top of that, the GDP figures came out far worse of what we expected due to the extensions of the heavy lockdown. So that could have enormous complications for South Africa, and it could be that the Reserve Bank of South Africa could be proactive and also maybe drop interest rates for us. But you also have some other problems that come in, where inflation numbers are ticking up in South Africa. Is still around between 3 and 4%. It's still in your low territory, so we might see the Reserve Bank of South Africa coming in and cutting interest rates, but it looks highly unlikely due to the forecast. It shows that it's 3.5%. That is a forecast. Consensus have it at 3.5%, and it looks like they're gonna keep it at 3.5%. That is what a lot of analysts are expecting of South Africa, that they will do absolutely nothing. And as we know, the South African Reserve Bank are a bit conservative when it comes to interest rate decisions. But this year, I must say, they were very loose with the interest rates, but I think they will actually put the brakes on there and not dropping interest rates anywhere further. But we can only think that, but due to the economic data of South Africa, it looks like the Reserve Bank can be a bit proactive and cut interest rates. I will just take a short break, and then I'll be back with you some more information regarding Friday's news, which will also be a jam-packed one at the end of the week. So I will just take a short break. We'll be back with you some more information regarding the markets this week.
The champ is here! 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 The champ.
Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Ted Turner. Success leaves clues, kids. I just named 5 of the greatest names in business in the last 150 years. And they all have one thing in common. They're ball busters. They're hard as nails. Where does that leave you? I still work 50, 60 hours a week. And I haven't had to work in 35 years. You're not willing to do anything. You're not willing to sacrifice anything to be a high-performance person.
I don't want to be like that.
No, most people don't.
I want to be liked.
Yeah, well, see, you want to fit in. I'm the only speaker that you're ever going to hear that really, with all his heart, doesn't give a shit. If I leave here you liking me, I did something wrong.
Do you remember them days where you thought it was absolutely unbearable and you thought you wasn't going to endure that one? Do you know that your survival rate for every last one of them bad days is 100%? Your track record for surviving bad days is 100%. That's a fact. Your track record, you batting 1,000. You done survived every funky day you ever had. You survived every hater. You survived all the evictions. You survived the firings. You survived all the tell you no, we ain't hiring. You survived all the trouble you ever been in. Your survival rate is 100%. 100%.
Getting your business funded is a lengthy process with the banks, and it can take weeks before getting an answer. ProfitFX works with the best in the finance industry to bring you an unrivaled business funding solution for South African businesses. Our funding partners have funded millions in the last year in support of growing your business and our economy. Get in touch with your talk show host to request more information. A trade history of 3 years or more and an annual turnover of 1 million rand or more is required. Terms and conditions apply.
The champ is here! 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 The champ is here!
Good morning and welcome back to Bull Market Stock Show. This is your host Rian Opson, and we're doing still this week's news, which I think it will be an all-out war for currencies and central bankers that want to devalue their currency to boost exports and boost economy growth. Well, it will be maybe good for people that import stuff. But there's also some serious repercussions, because then you import stuff quite a lot from United States and China, and on the other side you don't buy local stuff, and then local people are losing jobs. So it is a bit crazy what is going on in the world today. And then also that can lead to trade wars also, where you put on taxes. Taxes on import duties. So it could be actually a crazy period of time for economies across the world, and also that can lead to equities that could go up, and then you if central banks push or devalue their currencies, then you have equities goes up. It push inequality in the country. It causes inflation for domestic people to go up because of the weaker currency, because they need to import stuff. So it could be a bit crazy for a lot of countries. Not for a bit crazy. It could be. It can create havoc for a lot of countries and their domestic economies. But let us go to Friday and see what is going on there. Now, on Friday, there is retail sales that will come out of Britain year on year that will also be out at 8 a.m. South African time. They forecast at 2.9%, consensus have it at 3%, and previously at 1.4%. Now, it's a bit strange there because that is the August numbers that will come out. So I think maybe there will be a bit of a decline and not an uptick up. And then you have retail sales month over month of a 0.5% forecast, and also consensus at 0.7%. Previously was at 3.6%. Then you have Canada's retail sales, and this one is crazy. You have previous at 23.7%, and then your forecast is actually 0.7% for the month of July. Consensus every 1%. From 23.7 to 0.7% forecast. That is a bit bizarre. Those two predictions there for Canada and also for the British pound. Now, that is what making this week difficult, because you have interest rate decisions, you have inflation numbers that will come out, and you have retail sales that will come out. So it will be mayhem this week. My best advice for you, if you have no trades open, don't even bother to trade this week. But if you do have trades open, and I hope it's with the dollar, rather to be safe than actually go in and jump in any Dick, Tom and Harry trades, because you can't go on your chart this week by saying, no, I will have this money at 4 o'clock and have support and resistance lines. Sorry to say, that shit will not apply this week. Definitely not. Because news can jump anywhere here. Because as I said, with China's news come out, and then you have the RBA news come out, you will have the GDP of Australia's news come out, but then previous day you have the FOMC statement comes out, because the FOMC needs to be clear on what they will do to get this elusive 2% inflation story. So it could be mayhem this week. but it could be maybe strong for your commodity currencies. It could be negative for your commodity currencies this week. Or the market will just say, hey, this monetary policy stimulus from central banks doesn't work. And then what? So if you have trades open this week, I hope it's with the dollar. If you go with your more sensitive currencies, which is now the others, which is Euro, British Pound, Australia, New Zealand, and them, you are actually in big trouble. But maybe you could win also. You could actually go in with those currencies and win big this week because they are sensitive, or you can play it safe, as what I do. Just go with your safe havens for this week because of the mayhem that will actually disrupt this week. So please be very careful this week. It's not an easy time to trade because most of the countries going off the lockdown, other countries like your Europeans are thinking of lockdown because of the winter period. So it will be a very, very crazy time. And normally what I know, when you have such crazy time, people will go into bonds. You will have bond yields down. You will have a stronger US dollar. That could be the issue for me for this week and maybe for the month of September. Also, there is a very big story regarding October in the markets, where markets normally crash. September, October is the time where things go out of hand, and then you have stock markets that actually go in for correction. So it is a bit crazy this time around. I would say, my personal opinion, as I was saying for this whole entire year, stay with the bloody dollar and just keep the trade simple. Because if things go for uncertain territory, people go into the bond market, especially your U.S. treasuries. The yield curves, the yields are going down. U.S. dollar strong. That is what I know. But we will see what will these central bankers promise this week. I think it will be a lot of crap, but it depends, will the market believe it or not. It will be a heavy time of trading this week. Please be very careful, and at all times, keep your volumes low. Also, I will have a big announcement tomorrow on Tuesday. So please tune in tomorrow at around 10 o'clock. I will actually announce something for you for tomorrow. So that is it from my side for today. Please, guys, have a lovely Monday, and please be very careful of the market. Bye-bye.
The champ is here! The champ is here!